You good? No. It's okay. I didn't quite catch the end of that. You said, I love you.
Maggie. Maggie Dunn was her name.
On the polished stage of American Idol, under the glare of a million lights, some voices just sing, but some voices tell a story. In season 23, an 18-year-old from the heart of Louisiana stepped into that spotlight, and he was carrying more than a guitar and a dream. He carried the weight of a promise, the echo of a tragedy, and a song that was never meant for fame. It was meant as a message to heaven. This is the story that American Idol didn't fully tell you. It's the story of John Foster, the neo-traditional country phenom whose quiet humility and old soul voice captivated a nation. But to understand the artist, you have to understand the anguish that shaped him. It's a story that starts not with an audition, but with a devastating loss that shattered his world and plunged his small town into a darkness that felt inescapable. He was a standout talent, a young man who sang with the conviction of country legends twice his age. But behind that powerful voice was an unimaginable tragedy. This is the story of how John Foster turned the devastating loss of his two best friends into a song that moved an entire nation, a tribute that transformed his private grief into a public act of love. It's a journey of faith, resilience, and the relentless power of music to find light in the deepest sorrow. This is the real story of John Foster. On New Year's Eve 2022, while the world was getting ready to celebrate the promise of a new year, a devastating accident plunged the small town of Addis, Louisiana into darkness. A reckless police chase ended in a horrific crash, tragically taking the lives of two beloved high school cheerleaders, Maggie Dunn and Caroline Gill. The community was absolutely broken, left to grapple with a senseless loss that was impossible to comprehend. Just over a year later, their best friend, John Foster, would step onto the American Idol stage, carrying the immense weight of that loss and a song born from that unimaginable grief. He wasn't just there to sing, he was there to testify. This is the story the cameras only scratch the surface of. The story of how a heartbreaking tragedy was transformed into a message of hope that would capture the heart of a nation and prove that the most powerful songs are the ones written in tears. To really get the size of John Foster's journey, you have to understand where he comes from. Addis, Louisiana is a small town in West Baton Rouge Parish, a place where roots run deep and community is everything. It's the kind of town where Friday night football games are local holidays. Families all know each other by name, and life moves at the steady pace of the nearby Mississippi River. John grew up in this culture, a world of Cajun heritage, devout faith, and a deep appreciation for tradition. From a young age, two things defined John's world: his faith and his music. A devout Catholic, his voice first found its strength not in concert halls, but in the pews of his local church. It was there, surrounded by his community, that he learned music wasn't just for performing, it was for connection, for worship, and for healing. His style, which he calls neo-traditional country, wasn't a manufactured brand. It was the genuine soundtrack of his life, inspired by the classic storytellers of country music like George Strait and Merle Haggard. His principal at Brusley High School, Walt Lemoyne, even described him as having an old soul, a quiet, humble student whose powerful voice seemed to come from another era. But John's world was anything but solitary. At its center was a powerful bond of friendship, a tight-knit group that navigated high school together. His best friends, Maggie Dunn, 17, and Caroline Gill, 15, were vibrant, cherished members of the Brusley High community. Maggie was a cheerleader, a beacon of light and energy, whose brother Liam was also a close part of their circle. Caroline was a friend whose spirit brightened the lives of everyone she knew. Their friendship was the ordinary, beautiful kind that defines your teenage years. It was built on shared secrets, inside jokes, and big dreams for the future. For John, this bond was a cornerstone of his identity. They were the people who got his passion for music, who cheered him on at local gigs long before a national audience ever would. In a town like Addis, these friendships aren't casual. They're woven into the fabric of who you are. And John wasn't just a musician in the making, he was an exceptional student. He was the kind of person who excelled quietly, without any fanfare. He graduated from Brusley High School in 2024 not just with a diploma, but as the class co-valedictorian, an achievement that spoke to his discipline and character. His mother proudly shared his valedictorian speech online, calling his intelligence another gift from God. He had plans beyond music, too, enrolling as a pre-med biology major at Louisiana State University, with dreams of one day becoming an oncologist. This was John Foster's normal world, a life balanced between academic ambition, deep faith, the love of his family and community, and the profound joy of a friendship that felt like it would last a lifetime. He was already performing at regional events, sharing bills with established country artists like Doug Stone and John Schneider. He had a life rich with purpose and connection. But on the final day of 2022, that world was shattered, and the boy, who sang classic country heartbreak songs, would soon be forced to write his own. New Year's Eve is supposed to be a time of hope, a turning of the page, but on December 31st, 2022, for the community of Addis and Brusley, that hope turned into an unthinkable nightmare. The events of that day weren't just tragic, they were senselessly, cruelly avoidable. It all started when a man named Tyquell Zanders allegedly stole a family member's car in Baton Rouge. This kicked off a police pursuit that crossed into West Baton Rouge. The chase was frantic and dangerous, with speeds reportedly hitting 110 miles per hour. An Addis police officer, David Cothran, joined the pursuit. According to the 18th Judicial District Attorney, Tony Clayton, that officer made a horrible decision. As the high-speed chase tore through Brusley, Officer Cothran's vehicle ran a red light and slammed into another car. That car was carrying Maggie Dunn, her brother Liam, and Caroline Gill. The impact was catastrophic. Maggie, 17, and Caroline, 15, were killed. Maggie's brother, Liam, was critically injured, but miraculously survived. The community was left in a state of shock and overwhelming grief. The details that emerged only deepened the sorrow. The district attorney was blunt in his condemnation of the officer's actions, stating the public would be enraged when all the evidence came out. The officer was arrested and faced 2 counts of negligent homicide. Zanders, the man who started the chase, also faced charges in the deaths of the 2 teens. But for the families and friends of Maggie and Caroline, legal proceedings offered little comfort in the face of such a sudden, violent loss. For John Foster, the news was world-altering. These weren't just names on the news. They were his best friends. They were the faces in the crowd at his shows, the voices of encouragement, the constants in his life. The very foundation of his world had crumbled. The future they had all imagined, graduations, careers, life's milestones, was just gone. The grief that fell over the community was like a thick, suffocating blanket. Brusley High School became a center for mourning. Students and teachers had to grapple with empty seats in their classrooms and the silence where laughter used to be. The towns of Addis and Brusley were united in sorrow, holding vigils and supporting the grieving families. It was a communal wound that touched every corner of their tight-knit world. The nature of the tragedy, a violent, senseless end to 2 young, promising lives, left a particularly deep scar. It wasn't a disease or a natural disaster. It was a moment of recklessness that stole 2 of the community's brightest lights. John was left to navigate not only his own gut-wrenching grief, but also the public mourning of a town that had lost its own. In the silence after the sirens, John was left with a choice: be consumed by the darkness or find a way to carry their light forward. In the days and weeks after the accident, John Foster retreated. The vibrant, ambitious young man was lost in an ocean of grief. He later described it as an overwhelming sadness that words alone cannot hold. To find a space for that sorrow, he went to buy. When John Foster decided to audition for American Idol Season 23, it was a decision loaded with meaning. This wasn't just another young singer taking a shot at stardom. This was a young man on a mission. His mother, Amanda, later revealed this wasn't his first try. He'd auditioned twice before, in 2021 and 2022, but didn't make it to the judges. The third time, in 2024, was different. He wasn't just a talented kid with a good voice anymore. He was an artist with a story to tell. His mother recalled those earlier auditions, saying she had so much faith in him, even when he didn't quite believe in himself yet. Now, forged by tragedy, that belief had solidified into a quiet, powerful resolve. From his very first appearance, it was clear John was different. He walked into the audition room not with the swagger of a seasoned performer, but with the humble charm of his hometown. He brought Cajun food for the judges, a gesture that was more than a gimmick, it was a statement. He was bringing Addis, Louisiana, with him. Throughout the competition, his performances were a masterclass in neo-traditional country. He sang songs by George Strait, Randy Travis, and Toby Keith, not as imitations, but as heartfelt homages. Judge Carrie Underwood, a country superstar herself, became one of his biggest champions, noting he was a throwback to 90s country, reminding her of icons like Dwight Yoakam. Fans online agreed, praising his polished, smooth, and beautifully timeless voice, and saying he doesn't just sing country, he lives it. But every note he sang was filtered through the lens of his backstory. When he performed, he was sharing a piece of his soul. The audience connected with his vulnerability as much as his talent. His performance of I Cross My Heart was described by viewers as touching, graceful, and beautifully heartfelt, with some sharing that it brought back memories of their own loved ones. He wasn't just a contestant, he was a vessel for shared emotion. As he advanced through the rounds, his community back home rallied around him with overwhelming force. Watch parties were held all over Addis and Brusley. His hometown parade was a massive celebration, with John riding on a giant crawfish float. The state of Louisiana even issued a proclamation declaring it John Foster Day. This was a community, seeing its own story of grief and resilience reflected on a national stage, and they embraced him for it. His mother's earlier observation that he was finally ready proved to be true. The boy who had been rejected twice before now commanded the stage with a presence years beyond his age. His performances were consistently praised for their emotional depth and authenticity. As one fan commented, America falls in love with the person, story, charisma, and John seems to embody all three. His journey on American Idol was never just about winning. It was about honoring a memory, representing his home, and sharing a story of hope. As John Foster's star rose on American Idol, he was confronted with an ugly side effect of modern fame: misinformation and online rumors. In the high-pressure cooker of a national TV competition, anonymous voices on social media began to spread bizarre, false claims. It was a test not of his voice, but of his character. The rumors were a strange and baseless mix. Some claimed he was actually 24 years, old, not 18, trying to strip away the narrative of his youth. Others insisted he was from Kentucky, not Louisiana, attempting to erase his deep connection to his home. There were even whispers